Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers, welcome to the afternoon recap of Day 8 in the Kouri Richins trial. Let's jump right in. Next up on the stand was an amazing witness, Crystal Bowman Carter. She was the estate planner that worked with Eric. Eric's financial advisor reached out to her on June 25th, 2019, when they signed the buy-sell agreement. They showed the agreement that the deceased estate had to buy the interest in the business using the payout from life insurance, and this is very common. Eric met with the witness in October of 2020 to update his estate planning due to some recent financial concerns he had for his boys that they would not be cared for with his assets. He did not want to communicate with the witness through emails. He was worried Kouri would find them. He wanted to leave everything to his boys if possible. Eric communicated with the witness through his sister, and the prenup only included the business. They said there would be a share for Kouri for a third, and the rest would go to his kids. Also, tangible personal property would go to his sons who were young, and she said that's really unusual because typically it goes to the spouse. She also prepared a healthcare directive and the trust, and they bring in Eric's will. It showed his healthcare directive and his wishes to be buried, unlike what Kouri's mom said of him wanting to be cremated. And it listed Kouri Richins Benson as the trustee. Kouri was able to access money for education and support. The witness transferred the home to the trust as well as Eric's ownership in C&E. They bring in the power of attorney document, and it showed a revoking of the power of attorney. Eric did not sign that because he was scared of Kouri's reaction. She found out about Eric's death on March 4th, 2022. Clint called her, and later she got a call from the sheriff's office wanting her to talk to Kouri. Kouri was mad about the house, and the witness told her there was an estate plan in place and the house was in a trust. She said Kouri was big mad and said, "What's wrong with you people?" and then handed the phone back to the officer. Kouri was under the impression the house was hers, and she was unaware Eric did this estate planning. A representative for Kouri reached out to the witness on March 8th through email and asked that she give Kouri time to grieve. The witness sent him a copy of Eric's will, so he knew Eric's wishes about his burial. The witness opened up probate 10 days after Eric died, and that's not the typical time frame for this to happen. Normally, she would have done this about a year after death once his creditor claims had been resolved, but they needed to get Katie in place as the trustee to make sure Eric's wishes were followed. On cross, for the revocation document, you didn't revoke the power of attorney, and the witness says that's incorrect. We just didn't sign the document. And the defense says, I know what you're getting at, and the witness says that another one got signed apart from the durable power of attorney that was being signed. On the document you didn't sign, this was from May 8th, 2013. Yes. The witness said circumstances changed. Defense, he wanted to revoke it, but he hadn't until he saw you, and the witness said yes. You were interviewed by law enforcement a year after Eric passed, and you told them it stuck out how kind Eric was about Kouri using that power of attorney the way he didn't like. And the goal of revoking was Kouri couldn't be trusted to use it well, and the witness says yes. Why couldn't she be trusted? The witness said she misused it to take out $250,000 out in Eric's name, and he didn't like that. Did you say Kouri's business skills were less than fantastic because she was young and inexperienced? And the witness said, I was repeating what Eric said about her business skills. What was your understanding? She said, I told police what Eric told me, that she was misusing the power of attorney. And the witness wanted to include stronger, more protective language, but she was surprised when Eric said, Kouri is the mother of my kids. She made mistakes, but I am doing what I'm doing. When you added the house to the trust, did you look to see if Kouri contributed to the mortgage? And the witness said no, because that's not relevant. Did you see whose funds purchased the property in the house? And the witness said no. How could I know? What Eric signed transferred his personal property. Defense, so you took his word? She said, I didn't have to take his words. He did list some things like his guns, but he transferred his personal property. Defense, do you usually do a state of intent? And the witness said, no, that's not common. So they blow it up on screen. She said it's not unusual to include that, but she doesn't unless there's a reason, and that's what Eric wanted, was for that to be included. The intent is to provide for Kouri and the kids until their death. Eric told her the email wasn't to be used because Kouri snooped in his email. Were you aware he was consulting a divorce attorney? Yes. Would you say it's unusual not to include your spouse as a trustee if you're consulting a divorce attorney? And the witness said it is not unusual. The witness did speak to Kouri on the phone and accidentally sent an email to Kouri instead of the trustee, Katie. This was on March 4th, 2022. The defense gets this wrong and says less than 48 hours after Eric died, and your conversation was at the police's request. Eric died March 4th, which, by the way, 4 years today. Rest in peace, buddy. Justice is coming. You told her the house you live in is not yours and she got upset. The witness said, I told her she didn't have the title to the house. Defense. You're telling a new widow you're about to be homeless? And the witness says, no, that's ridiculous. I told her she would not be kicked out and could still live there. And he provided for her in his estate planning. You don't know if Kouri knew about the trust? And the witness said it was apparent. She didn't know. Defense brings in a summary of Eric's assets, and his total listed was $7.36 million. Defense. While he's alive, he can do whatever he wants with his money and his property. Witness says yes. But the minute he dies, Katie can decide how much to give to Kouri. And the witness said Katie has to follow the rules of the trust. The witness didn't know if Kouri asked for money after Eric died. She's asked if she went to the funeral. No. Are you still close to Eric's sister? She said no, that was solely a professional relationship, and that was it for her. The next witness on the stand, y'all, Josh Grossman, the handyman lover boy. In the beginning, when he first was raising his hand, it was like he was refusing to say he promises to tell the truth. So the judge sends the jury out and puts him on the stand and asks if he understands, and he says yes. They bring the jury back in. He says he's known Kouri for 10 years at this point. They met right here in South Carolina where she was flipping a house, and he answered a wanted ad. I would love to know where in South Carolina. I need to look it up. He moved to Utah in early 2020 to work for Kouri flipping houses. He stayed at a flip she had in Heber initially. They did not have a contract about payment, but he did live in those houses for free. She gave him money when he needed it, and he liked her, so he would work for free, but she did pay him. She also bought him 2 trucks. The first, it sounded like he said she gave that to her mom and then bought him another one. They became romantic just before he moved to Utah. They show the vacation confirmation on the screen. He knows what it's alluding to. He knew about this trip, and they point out his initials on that reservation as well as his birthday, and he confirms that's his. It was supposed to be a birthday present, but he said they didn't discuss the vacation much, but it was there. He said he loved her and felt she loved him, and he said he has a tendency to go head over heels. This is the first time, by the way, he has seen her since they broke up in 2022. I'm going to recap as much as I can, but they brought in a lot of text, and it would take me 2 episodes to read. So I'm going to hit the best ones and try to give you an overall idea of everything they talked about. He said they exchanged text messages daily unless she was mad at him or vice versa. He said they talked about anything you'd talk about with your best friend. Life, flipping houses, her kids. Then they bring in the texts. In one text, he says, it's draining to love you and pretend to be an idiot. And Kouri says, what do you want to know that I'm not telling you or I'm quiet about? He said he wants to know everything about her. It's part of being in love, and he doesn't want any information tonight. Kouri says something specific spiked this, though. Can you tell me what it was? I'll be up wondering all night, babe. Worrying, feeling horrible. I would greatly appreciate you telling me, but if not, that's okay. He said he can't text it, and he says, this sucks. If you lived one day with my phone, you would get it. And she quotes something he said, it's draining to love you. And Kouri says, my heart is burning with sadness to have to read that. It's like it popped out of my chest and someone is stomping on it. I knew this would come one day. I don't expect you to sit around and wait for the day the trigger gets pulled because who knows when that's going to be. It's beyond selfish. Maybe saying goodbye earlier than later is better. Kouri says something about a love triangle, and he asks, what do you mean by that? And Kouri says, I'm married. And then you have our relationship. I'm in love with a man who's not my husband. He says, we could talk right now. Instead, it's going to be misinterpreted text once again, and let's end this sooner. Wild. She says, I'll always love you, handsome. And then she says they can talk tomorrow. I want to go to sleep as happy as I am when I woke up with you this morning. By the way, this text, December 18th, 2021. Josh tells her, "You changed the meaning of the sentence. It's draining to love you, and you threw the last half away. You used your new sentence as an epiphany and a reason to profess your love triangle of Eric and end it sooner with me. Chopped liver over here." She responds, "Profess my love for Eric? What? That's not what I'm saying either. I'm telling you, I'm in love with a man who's not my husband. That's two people. Want to make a circle with three people?" Josh says, "If you love me now, ending it sooner will be good for one reason only that's a guarantee. Last night wasn't a guarantee, but I did that on purpose." We don't get a lot of context with what exactly this means, but let's keep going. Kouri talks about a day he yelled at her on the phone when he said she was selfish, and she was offended by that. Kouri said, "If we don't end things, I'll fall deeper and more in love with you than I already am." He says, "If you're going to be mad, you need to come see me and do it in person. If you're going to say goodbye, do it in person. Or better yet, just love me." Kouri says they both knew it was coming. It's not what she wants to do, but it's not fair to you because I can't break up my family. She said that he's one of her best friends and they could be great together. He replies, "I thought you were getting a divorce." And she said, "What if it's in a year? You're supposed to sit and wait. I would never ask you to." And he says he would wait a year. "But if you're coming over on the 3rd to say goodbye, you're not invited." He sends her a text that says, "I love you." And then he uses her initials and writes a sentence. K, kind. O, outgoing. U, unique. R, romantic. I, inches away from signing her divorce papers and falling madly in love with her soulmate. "Good night, Lima Bean." She says, "Too late. I've already fallen." Night. Gag. He said that exchange was all in one day. And they moved back to November 29th, 2021. He talks about her saying this wasn't that big of a deal. And she said she would call him tomorrow and tells him to not use his head anymore. November 28th. Kouri says, "When I was little, I grew up scrubbing other people's toilets in Park City at rich people's houses after school. Christmas breaks all summer, I worked for my aunt's company. I was just always looked down upon because you're literally the person cleaning toilets. I always said to myself and my aunt, one day I'll own properties in Park City like all these rich, snooty people, and I'll never be like them. Tomorrow I close on 3 properties all on the same day, 2 being in Park City. That's a huge deal to me. Biggest accomplishment to date career-wise. It's never been about the money. It's about being able to say, I too have properties in Park City and you're not better than anyone the way you treat people, and I can prove it. Tomorrow is a really big deal for me, self-accomplishment-wise, to sit and reflect and be thankful. So I just wanted to sit for a minute and celebrate with someone and have a drink. No one really knows about the Park City properties. She wants to know when they could sit and toast to new beginnings of life and to celebrate. Moving forward, January 9th, 2022, she asks, have you ever done anything besides smoke weed? He says, yeah, pretty random. We've had this talk. First at Chili's with me, you, and Ronnie, which is Kouri's brother. Kouri asked, what did you say? He said, yes, I've done other drugs, but not all of them and not often. You? Kouri says she's starting a new series, Dope Stick, and it made her wonder. She said, nope, not me. And he says, are you sure? Prescriptions count. Kouri said that counts. Then when I have my son, I have a cabinet full of prescriptions, but not my thing. He said, that's not an answer. And Kouri says, how? I answer perfectly. They're just pain pills still in there. Can I just say here, if Eric was using drugs, there would not be pain pills just sitting in there from when she had her kid. That's just my 2 cents. She asked about his prescriptions, and he says his VA prescription. He said he feels like he took someone else's at some point. He can't remember who or what, but there was just too much alcohol first. February 14th, 2022, we talked about this yesterday when the text messages came in through that witness. This is where Kouri says she has to go make finger foods for her kid, but she would be there in an hour. The next day, February 15th, he says he's in love with her, and she says, like, actually in love? If I was divorced right now and asked you to marry me tomorrow, would you? He says, yes, I love you. Of course I would. They have a lot more of these texts with what seems like 2 middle schoolers wrote to each other, just drooling back and forth. It's repetitive and it's gross. But at this point in the testimony, he gets really restless and seems to be crying, and the prosecution asks if he needs to take a break. So the judge sends the jury out. After a minute or two, he says he's okay and they bring the jury back in. February 23rd, Kouri says, I wanted to celebrate some semi-good news with you tonight, maybe another time. They bring in a text where Kouri said she had a dream that she got divorced and they moved into the Midway mansion and they could raise some kids and have a farm. Then she talks about needing to put the $300,000 down on the Midway mansion. She says, boy's almost home. I wish you were here. I want you on me. March 3rd, 2022, they're still talking about the Midway mansion and how he's ready to celebrate with her. She's not responding, but does say, I'm not mad at you at all. I just haven't had a second to text. Give me a few. Love you. March 3rd, by the way, the last night Eric Richins was alive. On the 4th, he texts her, hey, babe, how you feeling today? I'm proud of you. He texts again, hey, what's going on with you? Are you good? Kouri replies, no. Eric passed away. Talk later. He says, what? She said, no words. Turning phone off. Eric passed away last night. He says, no words either. Lost. She said, nuts. I can't do this. And Josh says he's devastated. He said, I can't comprehend. I don't know what to say or do. I want you to be safe. What happened? Who are you with? She said, 3 a.m. I called the ambulance. Been up since then. People, family, and friends still here. They think it was an aneurysm. Moving on to March 20th, 2022, there's a text from Kouri with a link to the resort, and she says, are we there yet? He says, that place sure does look cool. It's definitely pretty there. Soon enough, though, it's going to be breathtakingly beautiful and the most stunning space on the planet. I can't believe it. I've known of / wanted to go for a long time, speak any French, and they talk about the trip for a few minutes in text. April 8th, 2022. Kouri says, I think I want you to be my husband one day. April 15th, Kouri says, I'm going to call. I had 22 cops searching my damn house Wednesday for 8 hours. This crap just keeps getting worse and worse. And he says, searching your house for what? She said the autopsy report isn't done yet, but the toxicology report came back and he had a trace of fentanyl in his system. I didn't even know what the hell that was until they showed up at my door. My attorneys are fighting it because they detained me. No reading me my rights, ever told me why they were at my house and what the hell they were looking for. I was like, WTF. They had a search warrant and everything. This is so effing ridiculous. And all that drug dogs and everything that they didn't find a damn thing but Eric's weed gummies. Congratulations, idiots. They were so disappointed. My attorney said in order to get a search warrant, they would have had to have had some proof a crime was committed, whether it's drugs being sold in and out of my house, or me having something to do with this crap. I don't even know what the F that is. I thought it was cocaine. The detective corrected me. They took all electronics out of my house, even my kids' stuff. Eric does not do effing drugs. He ate a ton of edibles, 4 to 5 a week, but rarely even drank. This is absurd. And they don't even have a cause of death yet. How can they just jump to all this BS before we even know? Ronnie swears the gummies are laced with it because it was a new pack. This is all so freaking stupid and crazy. Josh says, I have tons of questions and thoughts. I'll save them for a phone call. He met with Kouri about 2 weeks after Eric's death, and they went into the mountains together and sat in her car and talked. He said they talked about Eric, and he isn't used to her being open like that. He thinks she was exhausted emotionally and diverting attention to her, but she did that a lot. At one point, this is when Kouri asked if he ever killed anyone while serving in Iraq. He responded, and she asked how it made him feel, and he answered. They did not tell these answers in his testimony. He said between 6, 8, and 10 months after Eric's death, they stayed romantic, but they were having falling outs because things changed after he passed, and that was it for direct. I'm pretty sure Kouri told the defense attorneys to take it easy on him. I mean, she kind of showed a little emotion today for the first time, by the way, not her husband's death, but seeing her ex-lover on the stand to me. You knew each other a few years before it was romantic, and you weren't in contact that whole time. He said there was a period of 2 to 3 years where they didn't speak, but in 2020, he moved out to Utah because he was going to work with Kouri. She asked about the breaking up text, and he said that to him, it sounded like adios. He's asked if he used illicit drugs off and on, and he said that would be fair. He's asked if being with Kouri was more like a fantasy other than a reality, and he says yes. He wanted it, but he couldn't picture it down the road. In the text from March 2nd, where she wanted to celebrate the Midway mansion, what was the plan? He said it was to meet up for brunch. By the way, that March 2nd text was referring to Friday, but he said he didn't think Kouri meant Eric would be out of the picture. Kouri, by the way, did not come to the brunch that Friday, and he texted to ask what was up because it's not like her not to show. That's when he got the text, Eric died. It surprised him, and after that, he didn't see her for 10 days to around 2 weeks. Then he's asked, why did you tell investigators Kouri asked if he killed anyone? He said they had gone a year without speaking, and then he heard she wrote the children's book, and then she had been arrested. He said he was very overwhelmed with sorrow, grief, his infidelity, and the wrong he did. So he tried to call Eric's sister, and she wasn't available, but he did speak to her husband. Josh called the estate's private investigator, and the PI said Kouri killed Eric, and he said that changed it all for him. He said he looked at their past kind of in a new light, and if she did kill Eric and he could help, he would. The defense asked if the conversation in the mountains when she asked if he killed anyone was strange. He said he's been confused about this for years because it was about how good a couple of her boys were doing with bow hunting, life and death, God, and also supernatural things, but he wasn't surprised given the timing of this conversation. Kouri did pay him a lump sum of $25,000. After Eric died, he said it was for houses they had flipped. He did say Kouri was protective of Eric and his reputation. But after Eric's death, they didn't see each other as much because she was grieving. And he said she was different. In the normal way someone would be after something of that magnitude, as well as the effect on her kids. He said she can't go from taking care of them to talking to me on the phone. He said Kouri was not happy Eric died, and she came across as sad. When he last saw her, she was bent out of shape, but it appeared they were really finished, and Kouri ended that relationship. He said he was sad, and then he mentions today is the first time they've seen each other since the end of 2022. The defense asked if Kouri said anything about Eric being a phenomenal father, and he says yes. And that was it for him. So very interesting day. I can't imagine this made Kouri look good in the eyes of the jury because it's another motive for them to consider. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. I'll be live streaming, so come hang out with us. And just a little update on Lady. I did talk to Animal Control. They did go by today and they saw her out in the yard. She was not tethered, but they are going to be back in contact. So just cross your fingers something happens because this poor girl is being abused. So I don't think it's going to be a quick resolution, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that they do their due diligence and keep an eye on her and she can come back home where she's loved and not stuck outside all night. So that's it for now. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you soon.